to refuse hate. She taught me to refuse blanket judgment. And in this time, and with all of the internet and social media and algorithms and everything that wants us to think a certain way, the 24-hour news cycle, it is my hope that all of us would teach our kids, and not only to remember, just refuse hate. Don't hate anybody. I refuse to hate someone because they are Mexican or because they are Black or white or LGBTQ. I refuse to hate someone because they are a police officer. I refuse to hate someone because they are Asian. I would hope that we would refuse hate. And I want to take this Jean Herschel Humanitarian Award and dedicate it to anyone who wants to stand in the middle, no matter what's around the walls. Stand in the middle, because that's where healing happens. That's where conversation happens. That's where change happens. It happens in the middle. So anyone who wants to meet me in the middle, to refuse hate, to refuse blanket judgment, and to help lift someone's feet off the ground, this one is for you too. God bless you, and thank you, Academy. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So Tyler Perry says it all. Refuse hate, refuse blanket judgment, stand in the middle, no matter what's around the walls. Stand in the middle, because that's where healing happens. That's where conversation happens. That's where change happens. It happens in the middle. So I would like to share my own personal curriculum for finding a middle way in order to effectively become an agent of change in these divided times. This is a brief outline of that curriculum. It's a start. And I like to preface this with saying that I could be completely wrong about this. This could be not the way to go forward. It might be better to hold on to righteous anger and plot ahead and be divided. I don't know for sure. I could be wrong. But for me, this feels right. And I'm going to share what that curriculum is. We are on a sinking ship. If you look at the environment, for example, and we do need to communicate with each other, or we're not going to be able to solve these problems. Please keep that in mind. So what is the middle way? How can the middle way promote dialogue? How will our actions be more effective when we have middle way skills? And what Jewish practices already engage the middle way? The central metaphor of middle way is balance, avoiding rigid views that do not allow for provisional judgments. And it's as difficult as it looks. I'm giving you a very brief overview of middle way philosophy. If you want to know more, please go to the website, middlewaysociety.org. But the 5 elements of the middle way are skepticism, provisionality, incrementality, agnosticism, and integration. Skepticism basically means we can't know the truth. It's not an intellectual position, it's just recognizing that we have limitations. Provisionality is the practice of holding beliefs lightly. We need to have alternatives available to us. We can let go when we encounter new information. We're not holding on to our beliefs absolutely. Incrementality is about recognizing that we're justified just to a matter of degree. We do need beliefs to live our lives, but we don't hold on to our beliefs absolutely, nor deny any beliefs absolutely. If we think about things as a matter of degree, we can be more adequate in our beliefs and have dialogue too, by the way. Agnosticism. This is something we all know about, recognizing we cannot affirm or deny absolutes. That requires that we be even-handed. We need to avoid extremes. Religion, politics, philosophy, art, whatever we're interested in, we need to use experience as our guide. Integration. It's a positive goal that goes with the middle way. It provides us with a goal of critically reconciling different opposite desires, opposed beliefs, opposed meanings. We have to do that through a critical process, not simply a superficial process. We need to face up to the conditions that lie behind conflict and be critical as well as kind. Today, I'd like to focus on that fifth element, which is integration of desire. This practice, and these are all practices, they're not theories. This practice holds the seeds of political dialogue, what I think is one of the most important skills we can hone. I'm thinking forward to the next presidential election, for example. You know what can happen. To explain integration, we often start with a picture that was originally used by Quakers in the UK to promote pacifism. But the graphic is really useful for explaining integration. This graphic tells a story, and it's a story about desires and beliefs that are in conflict. In the first picture, you can see that the mules have incompatible desires. They're each pulling toward what they want, and neither can achieve what they're trying to achieve. They're tied together. They not only want different things, they have different beliefs about what they should be doing. As our saga continues, the mules continue to have incompatible desires, and these lead to conflict. The reason they have conflict is because they're framed by incompatible beliefs. It's the way they're seeing their situation that pulls them into conflict. Each mule takes its own beliefs to be absolute. They're not thinking about the other mule or the other mule's situation. They're not considering any other possibility. They're not considering any other possibility. The conflict becomes really intense and desperate. Their frustration creates a reframing. Each mule is forced to think of alternatives. They consider other possibilities. Other beliefs then become possible. And this is quite complicated, how they're able to do that. And I can't go into that right now because there isn't enough time. By the end, both mules adopt more adequate beliefs, and they can each achieve their goals. They may require compromise, but they've created a way for both to achieve their goals. This model of integration can be applied politically as well. This integration is a middle way, demanding from us that we reject absolute beliefs and be open to hearing from others. Since I'm talking about my own curriculum for exercising a middle way, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least introduce brain lateralization research by Ian McGilchrist. Our left hemisphere does theoretical processing, and our right is more big picture oriented. And I'm not talking about the pop psychology lateralization that you may have learned about years ago. This is something very much based in many years of research. To live an integrated life requires more of a big picture orientation. And that's what I'm going to say about that right now, because there isn't time. The best practice of middle way that I have seen has been done by this organization that Move On started called Living Room Conversations. They bring people together who have different points of view, sometimes very different points of view, and they set up a program for people to share their values. They start slowly, and then they move into whatever the topic is. I've done a couple of these, one on immigration, and it was very powerful because we all listened to each other and we really did have quite different points of view. People I met or people I never would have met if I hadn't gone through this organization. So I'd like to share a little description that they've put on their website that talks about what Living Room Conversations is about.
Just more and more committed to keep going, to keep doing this. We must have new conversations because we need them in the future.
Listening to other people, because there is so much agreement in the United States. If people talk to each other and find out what you're concerned about, what your hopes are.
Continue to work on to cultivate space within yourself and to make room for others.
How it's changed my behavior is that I'm a lot more careful with my language. I speak in a lot fewer absolutes. I ask myself, why do I think this?
And I think that's really what I think Americans in particular are looking for and value, is that sense of belonging and that sense of feeling connected.
And so my hope is that we rediscover kind of the ability to empathize with each other beyond some of these divisions, and that we rediscover the joy of that, because there's something deeply fulfilling in connecting with people. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
So what is Jewish about the middle way? What practices promote a middle way perspective? Here's a start, and this is my own personal start. It's not comprehensive in any way. It's just a start and part of my own curriculum. Musar, Shabbat, Torah study, and holidays. Musar is an ethical Jewish ethical practice. Personally, as a practitioner with secular synagogue, I think of Musar as a practical middle way practice that can be helpful to anyone to reflect about personality extremes within ourselves, to find balance, to help live a more integrated life, and therefore be better able to affect change. The traits listed in Greg Marcus's book, The Spiritual Practice of Good Actions, are humility, patience, enthusiasm, trust, loving kindness, truth, honor, gratitude, order, silence, equanimity, fear, and awe. Each trait is on a continuum with its opposite. For example, humility is on a continuum with arrogance. The middle is something to strive for. Stay tuned for a possible secular book on Musar at some point. We've been talking about trying to create something that would be more relevant to secular humanists like ourselves. For example, we look at these traits as personality traits rather than soul traits. Shabbat. Having a true Shabbat break from social media and work and worry is a great time to read, reflect, and become more integrated. Torah study, especially with a wide variety of people with different points of view, is a great way to exercise your middle way practices. We find our own meaning in these timeless stories. Some stories more than others, obviously, but having a timeless text to read with others can be a great practice in listening to others and creatively finding meaning in the text. Holidays, Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shavuot, as we sit here today. Each holiday, if creatively embodied in a full way, including some practices of the past, and more importantly, creating new practices, offer a great opportunity to exercise our middle way skills. They're organizations that are useful for figuring out a way to creatively celebrate these holidays. Society for Humanistic Judaism, Congress of Secular Jewish Organizations, the podcast Judaism Unbound, secularsynagogue.com, to name just a few. In conclusion, living an integrated life will enable us to effect change, which with much greater success, in my opinion. We urgently need to learn to speak across the political divide. If we don't, we're in trouble, I believe. And Judaism offers great opportunities to exercise our middle way skills. Again, as I said, this is my own personal curriculum to prepare myself for the work ahead. I may be wrong. It's a start. I am happy to share what I'm doing, and maybe others would like to do it as well. And I'd like to thank Tyler Perry again for his words, to stand in the middle, because that's where healing happens. That's where conversation happens. That's where change happens. It happens in the middle.